What is up? What is going on, everybody? Happy Easter and welcome back to the Mariners post-game recap. The Mariners dropped this one today, 5-1 to the Boston Red Sox to split the season opening series. I am going to break the game down for you guys, give you my thoughts and opinions on it. Before I get started again, thank you guys so much for all the support in the first three post-game recaps. Cannot tell you how much it means to me. At least for my standard, the videos have been very successful. So thank you guys so much for all the likes, comments, and the subs that I've gotten as I am on the road to 3,000 subs, excuse me. So if you are new here, hit that sub button. You guys can hit the like button. That helps out tremendously. And don't forget, download the SeatGeek app or go to the website and use promo code JSTrident for $20 off your next purchase. Doesn't have to just be Mariners. It can be any sporting event that's on SeatGeek. It can be another Major League Baseball team. Maybe you're out of town going to the game, but go ahead and use that promo code to save $20 off your next purchase. Again, happy Easter, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday. Let's start with the elephant in the room here right off the bat, and that's going to be the offense. I usually start with pitching, then move into the offense. But I think we've got to start out with the offense in this game today. And real quick, yes, I need a beard trim like nobody's business. Hopefully this week I will have that done and looking a little better and a little less with patches all over the place here as I'm looking at it in the camera. The offense was putrid. I mean, it was really putrid all series. So, I mean, it goes back to something I kind of said yesterday in the post-game recap is uh, I'm not worried, but I'm frustrated. And I think that would be my advice. You're asking Jay, what should we think about the offense? I think you have every right to be frustrated. It was a very poor performance for this offense through 4 games. Tons of strikeouts, which they were talking about cutting back on. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge, strikeouts are just the worst thing ever. Outs are outs at the end of the day. Yes, I understand putting the ball in play is better than striking out. It can lead to sac flies, run scoring. I'm certainly more in favor of putting the ball in play, but I don't believe that, strikeouts are the worst thing in the world. Last year's Mariners team, kind of a good example of it. Tons of strikeouts, still put up some decent offensive numbers. But anyways, still striking out a ton this year, not working a lot of walks, a lot of bad at-bats, and just not a lot of production. And even outside of really opening day with a couple home runs, most of the production has come on sort of bloopy hits. Even the extra inning rally last night, which was great and not taken away from it. It was a great win that you know, the team got, but it was Luke Raley with a blooper, Rojas with a hit that was bobbled out there, Raley speed scoring another run. Julio's was a solid line drive hit. But for the most part, not a lot of great contact. There's been some hard hit balls. I think Julio had one today that was 109 off the bat that was caught. Polanco had the wind take a home run and move it about 3 feet foul, so there has been a little bit of bad luck. For the most part, though, it's been poor, up and down. The only thing I can say, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record on it, but it is one series. It is 4 games, guys. It truly, this team was going to have 4-game stretches where the offense was not great. They're probably going to have more stretches where the offense isn't great. There's probably going to be a stretch where even this pitching staff that we know is really good will struggle a little bit and the offense will be, hitting the ball a little bit better. It does happen, guys. It happens to every team. I get it's the first 4 games. I get there's question marks around the offense. And I'm certainly not saying that this is the best offense in the league and just sit back, relax, they're going to be fine. I think there are some legitimate concerns, but those are the same concerns we had at the beginning of the year. And that's the other thing I would say. Now, if you were someone that was very doubtful of this offense coming into the year, then sure, you've got a little bit more fuel for a little more fuel on the fire for you 4 games in, and that's fine. I don't think I'm going to be able to convince you otherwise, and that's okay. But if you're someone like me that thinks this offense is pretty solid and certainly not going to be the best in baseball, but should be able to be top 10, in that range, 8 to 12, somewhere in that range, there's no reason to change your opinion on that because of 4 games. There's just not. No player should have their opinion. You shouldn't be changing your opinion of any player after a 4-game series. It's one bad series. So Jay, when do we start to go, okay, well, when do you start to worry about things? I've said it before. I usually give things about a month. I think that gives every player a chance to settle in a little bit, get their feet underneath them, get that hot streak that raises the numbers very quickly. I feel like a broken record again, but when you do a recap for every game, especially in baseball, there's going to be broken record moments. So just, it's every day it can be the same thing. So I'm going to repeat myself on some of my takes, but still, every player is a 4 for 4 away from having great numbers on the season. So until those numbers kind of regulate where a 4 for 4 doesn't really change much for you, I'm not in any sort of panic mode now. Um, and truthfully, even record wise, yes, I want the team to go off to a better start. I'm not saying that. I would love for the Mariners to be 4-0 right now. Trust me, I'm not like happy that they lost today or on Thursday. I'd much prefer wins. I prefer they sweep Cleveland and would have been 7-0. But that's not going to be the case in baseball. And if you can be 500, hopefully they're a little bit over through a month. What you do is you set yourself up in position where, okay, you get on that little bit of a winning streak, 4 or 5 game winning streak that every team seems to have one of those a year. Even Oakland last year, I think, had a 5 game winning streak at one point. So if you can sit around, 13, 12, 15, and 14, and then you get to that one series where just all clicks, you win 3, 4, 5 in a row, and you get to 18, 19, and 14. And then the other key is avoiding the long losing streaks. As frustrating as the Mariners were at times last year, it's one thing they did well. I think their longest losing streak was 3 or 4. Might even have been 3 last year. I'm not positive on that. But they avoided the big losing streaks and they mixed in the winning streaks. Now, I get it. I don't want to rely on a 14-game winning streak like 2 years ago. You don't want to rely on, I think they had 2 stretches where they won 8 out of 10 last year. Like they won 8 out of 10, lost a game, then won another 8 out of 10 or something like that, or 8 in a row. I don't remember what it was exactly, but they had like 2 8-game winning streaks or something similar. I certainly don't want to have to rely on that much of a comeback. But, like I said, if you can just stay in there, stay in the hunt, if you're 14-14, even, like I said, something like that, I'd prefer them to be over 500. I'd prefer they don't drop below 500 again this season. That would be great. But you do set yourself up in a position where if you can get on those little winning streaks, like I said, winning 3, 4 in a row, or even 4 to 5, you lose one, then you win 3 out of 4. You just kind of get in that little groove, which I think this team will. And I do think this offense will be streaky at times. I think just the profile of the hitters is going to lend itself to that. But I do expect this to be an above average offense when it's all said and done and the dust settles for this season. I think right now, for me, just a tough 4-game stretch. It's early in the year. It was certainly warmer today, so I can't really use weather as an excuse, but just guys getting their timing going. And I know we've gone through this before. And I think that's the other thing for Mariners fans, for us, is that like we've seen this before with this team where they do this. People like me go, don't panic, guys, don't panic. And it just keeps, escalating and everything like that. I mean, all I can tell you on that is I hope it doesn't. I hope the offense gets in a groove. I think it will. I have no control over anything this team does. I will remind a couple people of that because I have gotten some messages in the past from people, and I can tell you I have no connections to anybody in this organization. So it's not my fault if they don't turn it around, but I do think they will. I'm not worried yet. Listen, I mean, if you are really worried and you're like, Jay, I just don't see it. I think this offense stinks. JP Crawford will hit. Julio Rodriguez, right, is going to hit. What's he OPSing right now? Like 650 in the first series. Cal Raleigh is going to hit. Jorge Polanco is going to hit. Mitch Garver hasn't really played. Now that stinks because one game in, he's got the back spasm issue. It's a little concerning already. But we knew Garver was going to have some injury stuff, and that's why he's going to be primarily DHing. Hopefully he's back tomorrow night. Mitch Garver should hit. Mitch Haniger is hitting so far. Josh Rojas is hitting so far. So, these guys will play better. And even if you don't like the offense, even if you're like, Jay, nope, sorry, don't buy it. I don't think it's that good. They are certainly better than they were this series. Like they're going to score more than 10 runs over the course of a 4-game stretch this season. So I think the offense will turn it around. Very frustrating, right? I totally get it. That was a very frustrating series. Not only was the lack of runs there, but the at-bats were pretty pathetic. I mean, they were. Again, you guys know I don't overreact, but that's just what we saw in these 4 games. Again, I think they'll be better, but through 4 games, it has not been good. So, again, am I worried? No, I don't change my thoughts on a team after 4 games. That's why I said I give about a month, unless it just gets so out of control, right? Like if the team loses 13 games in a row, we have no choice but to panic a little bit. If you're 2-15, that's obviously time to be a little bit like, okay, clearly something's not working. But if they're hovering around 500 and the offense is still struggling in 2 weeks a little bit, I'll still be, I'll assess at the end of the month and see, okay, what does this team need to do to get better? I will say, though, it is a good reason why we shouldn't dive into spring training stats too much. We saw how good this offense was in spring training. I give excuses, not excuses, but reasons for, pitchers struggling sometimes in spring. They're working on new pitches. I talk about with guys on the Mariners when their ERAs in the eights or nines, or, they might just be throwing one pitch to get a feel for it. Well, other teams are doing that too. So we've got to take everything with a grain of salt. So, again, 4 games, maybe spring training still does translate. It still could, but I think it is a good lesson that we shouldn't just jump into spring training numbers and assume that that means that these guys are all going to take off now. So I think the offense will get better. I'm not worried yet. And they're 2-2. They didn't get swept this series. Truthfully, they're a game ahead of the pace they were at last year against Cleveland. So let's move on to the pitching a little bit. Bryce Miller got the start. He went let me pull up the box score here. 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned, 2 walks, 6 Ks. Gave up 2 home runs. Who was the second home run? Oh, Tyler O'Neill got him, and then it was Valdez. Was Valdez the other home run? Let me see. Yeah, Valdez got the second one. Um, I actually thought Bryce Miller threw the ball pretty well. The splitter looked amazing. That first inning, I was joking, but on Twitter I said, I've seen enough. Bryce Miller's the ace. Sorry, George, Luis, and Logan. Obviously, I was being sarcastic, but Bryce Miller's first inning was really as good as we've seen Bryce Miller since coming up to the big leagues. Very impressive. Struck out the side. Uh, a handful of those splitters look nasty. He was getting swings and misses on the splitter. And I still think the fastball is a quality pitch. As you guys know, I haven't been a big on the Bryce Miller hype train. That doesn't mean I don't like Bryce Miller. I'm just not as enamored with Bryce Miller as some other guys, just because he was primarily a one-pitch pitcher last year. I know he's got the slider too, but that slider was very much just a really small show me slider more than a truly, devastating pitch. However, that splitter looks like a legitimate weapon for Bryce Miller. So that was really encouraging to see. So I thought Miller threw the ball well. Now, with that said, there were still some very much 2023 Bryce Miller moments in this game. Giving up the long ball. Truthfully, the final line was very 2023 Bryce Miller, especially towards the end of the year when I think teams figured out the fastball a little bit more, gave up a couple of home runs. The stuff is clearly good. Like, he can strike guys out. He doesn't walk a ton of guys. So just the peripherals on their own are going to be decent. He's going to miss bats, and he's not going to put a lot of guys on. But he can hit hard. And even similar here, where he's through 3 innings with 1 earned run, then gave up the 3-run home run. We saw that a few times last year too, where, the results would be okay, but then just that one guy comes up and gets them, and it's a 2-3-run home run. And now you're looking at, an ERA in the 7s, essentially. So certainly some encouraging moments for Bryce Miller. I think the splitter looked great. Very excited about it. I think you saw guys really keying in on that fastball. Valdez is a perfect example with his 3-run home run. If you remember, it was a 2-1 count. I don't remember what Miller threw him. It looked like Valdez went around. The third base umpire said he did not. Now, I am not one to blame umpires. Players got to play better. The Mariners lost 5-1. It is what it is. But, if that's called a strike there, the ump says he went around. 2-2. Miller throws the splitter, or just at least has Valdez guessing a little bit more, and maybe gets out of that inning. And maybe the Mariners win this baseball game. Now, umps miss calls, right? Like Andres Munoz got a couple calls on Friday night when he's facing Tristan Casas in the 9th inning. So it happens. It evens out over the course of a season. But, the ump says he doesn't go around. It's 3-1. Valdez sits fastball. Miller puts it middle, a little up, I believe. And Valdez just sits back and hammers it out of there. So, like I said, some encouraging things from Bryce Miller, but also some things where you go, yeah, that was kind of 2023 Bryce Miller in a nutshell a little bit. So, I don't know where it goes necessarily, but the splitter looks like a legitimate weapon. Hopefully he can play off the fastball, and the slider's just enough of a third pitch to give Bryce Miller, a successful season. So I would say overall, mildly encouraged. That sounds really negative. I don't mean that. Like, let's say I have Bryce Miller right here. This is me on Bryce Miller. Everything this way is negative. Everything this way is positive. I probably went well, I guess it'd be this, because this is positive now. So, because I'm looking at the screen mirrored. So we're going this way for you guys, like one step in the positive for me, because I really like the splitter. And I was nervous about it over the offseason. I'm like, okay, is it just going to be a show me pitch or will it be a legitimate weapon? And it did look like a legit weapon. So I think overall encouraged by Bryce Miller. Cody Bolton threw an inning of work, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. I thought Bolton threw the ball fine. The arsenal of pitches looks pretty good. He throws 4 or 5. They all looked pretty solid. A little two-seamer, the sweeper, fastball. And you got to remember too, I think the run that scored reached on an infield hit. You know what I mean? So, and that again, it happened. It's there. It counts. It counts against Bolton, but I didn't see him get hit too hard or anything like that. So, sometimes that happens. And relief pitching is a high risk occupation. You come in, you give a couple bloopers, and your ERA can be inflated very quickly. But I thought Cody Bolton threw the ball just fine. Colin Snyder made his Mariner debut, 2 innings, shutout ball, 1 hit, 1 strikeout. I thought Snyder looked fine, looked solid, looked like a guy. Again, do I have faith in Colin Snyder coming in the 8th inning of a 3-2 game in Houston? No, I'm not there yet, but certainly someone that can help. Like I've said, not every reliever in your pen is going to be Andres Munoz, Matt Brash, and Gregory Santos. You're going to have guys like that. You just hope that they can be good enough that they can either, come in early in games, hold games to, small deficits where the offense can come back, and enough where you can, manage with having these guys on the roster. And again, I mentioned it yesterday, nobody is better than the Seattle Mariners at developing some of these bullpen arms. So Snyder looked good, and a nice bounce back from Trent Thornton with a shutout inning as well. So I know I already talked about the offense, but let's move on more from the narratives to the actual performance today. JP was 0 for 3 with the strikeout. This is going to be a pretty quick one because not much to talk about. Julio Rodriguez was 0 for 4 with the strikeout. Jorge Polanco was 0 for 4 with the strikeout. In Polanco's defense, he did just miss a home run. So, that is there. Mitch Haniger was 1 for 4 with a double. Mitch had some good at-bats. To me, Mitch Haniger is certainly one of the guys that looks dialed in early on. There was even an at-bat. I forgot what inning it was. But he was he got to a 3-ball count against Whitlock. Whitlock, I thought, threw the ball really well. I'll get into that in a second too. And he was behind. I think Haniger was ahead in the count 3-0. Ended up getting punched down strikes, but fouled off a bunch of pitches, was making solid contact is what I'm trying to get to. So Haniger does look pretty dialed in. He's had some nice at-bats. Ty France was 2 for 4, hitting 267 so far in the 4 games with just a 534 OPS. It's been all singles. I will say this, and I know this is going to sound weird because it's a 534 OPS. That's awful. If that's what Ty France did all season, that's dreadful. But I do think Ty's had some decent at-bats. I think he's made some decent contact. He looks trimmer. He looks better defensively. He's moving around a little bit better. He's certainly not going to be stealing a lot of bases, but I do think he's had some okay at-bats is what I'm trying to say. Certainly compared to the other guys. Maybe on a Mariners curve, he's had some decent at-bats through 4 games. Compared to the rest of the league, maybe not. But I think he's had some good at-bats and he's gotten some hits. So I've been slightly encouraged by Ty France. Dom Canzone, 0 for 2 with a strikeout. He had a miserable at-bat in the 2nd inning. The Mariners had 1st and 3rd after Haniger's double. Ty France had a classic Ty France inside-out single that dropped into right field. And Canzone was down on 3 pitches. Again, 4 games. Actually, I think 3 for Canzone, to be honest. So, and what, 9, 10 at-bats? Worried? No. But Canzone has not proven yet to be an everyday major league player. Or even truthfully proven to be a useful player yet. I don't mean that. That's not meant to be malicious. I'm a big Dom Canzone fan. Go back and watch my video on that trade with Paul Sewald. I liked the trade. But Canzone's got to prove it. So, am I worried? No, but he had a bad defensive play on Thursday with kind of a lack of effort, a lack of hustle, I should say. I think Canzone's effort's there, but on that triple that Rafael had on opening day, he's got to know who's running the bases there. And he's just had some really bad at-bats so far. That was just a brutal at-bat. And in that spot too, where you really need to try and get something in play there to get the runner home. Dylan Moore pinched hit for him. He was 0 for 2. Luke Raley's 0 for 3. Luke Raley's off to a slow start. He's made some okay contact, I guess. But like one of his 2 hits was that bloop single yesterday. I think he's looked good in the outfield. I will say that his speed very sneaky speed. I don't know. Luke Riley does not look like a guy with good speed. I'm just going to be honest. The eye test would tell you that's not a very fast player, but man, he moves really well. He's done a nice job in the outfield, nice job on the base pass. So, Rayleigh kind of falls into that middle category for me. Worried? No. But this was someone that was, his offensive production was very much carried in the first half of last season versus the second half. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Hopefully they get Mitch Garver back, and that will take a little bit of pressure off Canzone and Rayleigh from both having to play every day because Mitch Haniger's DHing. I do like Scott giving Mitch Haniger these DH at bats right now with Garver being out. Because listen, I talked about the offseason that Haniger may be a guy they platoon a little bit. Now, right now, the way Haniger's swinging, I don't blame Scott for playing him every day, but I don't think you can run him out there in right field every day. You've got to DH him some to just nullify some of that injury risk for Mitch Haniger. So looking forward for sure to getting Mitch Garver back. Josh Rojas, 1 for 2 with an RBI single. Listen, the hit was like 73 exit velo, so it was nothing special. But, earlier, remember I talked about strikeouts in the beginning of the video? That's a good example of like putting the ball in play, to avoid and excuse me, I had to pause the video there for a second. And a good example of just if it didn't get caught, I said, why putting the ball in play to avoid strikeouts? Good things can happen when you put the ball in play. So that at bat by Rojas, like a perfect example of that. Again, nothing fancy on the exit velo or anything there. It wasn't hard hit at all, but it got through and it got the Mariners their lone run. And, again, Rojas, truthfully, has been their best hitter so far this year. He's OPSing 1,000, batting 500. That won't hold up. But Rojas has been off to a real nice start after a very productive second half for the Mariners last year. And I know I see it all the time. People are like, oh, they didn't trade Paul Sewald last year. They might have made the playoffs. But remember, if you trade Paul Sewald, I got dogs barking now and everything. My dog must be watching the Mariners offense. You don't get Josh Rojas. You don't get that production from second base. Not telling anybody how to view that trade, but just putting it out there that Rojas was a very nice addition for this team last year after Colton Long. And so far through the first series of the year, he's continuing that. Luis Urias pinched hit, drew a walk, nice at bat by Urias. There was a ball that was a strike that was called a ball that kept that at bat going. I thought it was top of the zone. But a nice at bat, draws a walk. Listen, again, when the offense is, playing the way they are the first 4 games, I'm looking for positives, and it was a nice at bat by Urias. So I'll give him credit there. Zeby Zavala made his Mariners debut 0 for 3, did throw out a runner. We know he's got a good arm, good defensive catcher and everything like that. So not worried about him behind the plate. Listen, actually hit a couple balls hard. He had a line drive after the Rojas single in the second inning that was 93 miles off the bat. Again, not anything you can write home about, but looked like a solid line drive that was caught. And then I think in the 7th inning, they had 2 on with 2 out, and he flew out to center 103 off the bat. Probably a ball, if that's in left field, it's either off the wall or gone, to be honest. Maybe not gone, but it's certainly probably in the gap or something like that. Just hit it to the wrong part of the ballpark. I did want to talk about that at bat a little bit. I think that was after the Urias walk, so it was in the 7th inning. A couple people asked me, do you have Cal Raleigh bat there? And I don't think right now in March, truthfully, in March you do. Yes, later in the season, that's absolutely a spot where Cal's coming in. But one of the keys, I think, is to just give Cal Raleigh a little more rest. He has caught so many games the last 2 years that if he hits there, he's catching the last 2 innings, and then he's got to play again tomorrow. So I think if you can give Cal a full day off, you do it. Now, if it was the 9th inning and he's the tying run, then yeah, you've got to send him up there. You can't, I'm all for preserving guys, but you got to try and win the baseball games too. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying you don't go for the win, but I do think if you can give Cal full days off, you do it when you can. So I don't have a huge problem there letting Zavala take that at bat. And he wasn't the tying run either. If he had been the tying run, I'd be a little bit more like, yeah, I think you got to let Cal swing the bat there. But you do have to be careful. Baseball is so unique to other sports, right? Football's just season starts, it's go time, right? Now, I get sometimes even they're like, hey, we're going to hold a guy out week 1, make sure he's healthy. That happens. But baseball is truly, you do have to do load management in March and April. I'm not talking NBA style load management stuff, but in September, Cal's grabbing a bat there. In March, April, you've got to look at big picture stuff a little bit. Now, you don't want to let it get out of control. I'm not saying that, you're 2-10. You go, well, load management, but you do have to be cautious with those things. So listen, Mariners are 2-2, great opening series. I listen, 500, right? What's 500? You kind of go like this. That's kind of, if I did give um, you know, if we were playing charades and you said B500, that's what I would do for 500. So some good moments. Pitching looks really good. Kirby and Logan were fantastic. Luis is going to be fine. Bryce Miller's splitter was encouraging. I thought the bullpen actually held up pretty well. Every day is one day closer to Matt Brash and Santos hopefully being back in there. I was impressed with Boston's pitching. Thought Whitlock threw the ball really well. Cutter Crawford threw it well yesterday. Bayo threw it well, and then Pavetta threw the ball really well. Sometimes you do have to tip your cap. Now, I used to make a joke last year that I'm out of caps to tip at some point, but that was when they were facing, Patrick Corbin in the Nationals and got shut down. And again, it's 4 games in, guys. I can't go on massive rants 4 games into the season. Maybe if they were 0-4, I'd be a little harsher here, but they're 2-2. Houston's 0-4. I think Texas is 2-1. It's 4 games into the year. Well, let's see where it goes from here. I will say Cleveland's coming in, and they can pitch the ball very well too. So it's not going to get any easier for the offense. You're going to face Tristan McKenzie, and then Shane Bieber in game 1 and 2. So it's not going to get any easier on there for this offense. They're going to have to find a way to get it going for sure. And I think they will. I do. I think this offense is going to pick it. Well, listen, it's going to be better than it's been this series. I think there's no way it can be worse. Someone clip that. That's going to be a famous last words, but it will get better and hopefully sooner rather than later. So far 2-2, staying afloat, nothing to be concerned about, nothing to be super excited about either, but it is what it is. They're 2-2. I will have a series preview up hopefully later tonight for the series with the Guardians. I'm going to start doing series previews. I think that'll be cool. I'll give you a little preview of the pitching matchups, my thoughts on the other team. Baseball is very hard to predict. The Rockies could go beat the Rangers and sweep them. That's baseball. So in terms of predictions, I don't know if I'll be giving that, but I'll talk about the pitching matchups, maybe some advantages both teams will have in that series, and we'll go from there. So look for that hopefully later tonight. I will do my best to get that up. So remember to like, remember to comment, remember to hit that subscribe button. Think about becoming a channel member. I am going to, on Monday, have some schedules up for when I'll have live streams and then also members live streams. The regular live streams are a ton of fun. We hang out. We have a great time. Grab a beer, grab a soda, chill, watch some Mariners. Members only live streams will have giveaways in them. Once a month, I will do giveaways in members only live streams. It might be a hat. It might be a pennant, stuff like that. It might, as I go further and get, more members, more subs, and more revenue, it can turn into tickets or even a jersey or something like that as I get bigger. So it's kind of one of those work together to make the prizes bigger, I guess, type thing. So, but if you can't become a member, that's no worries at all too. There'll be plenty of cool stuff that we'll have on this channel. So don't worry about it. Have a great night, everybody. Enjoy your Easter Sunday. And as always, go Mariners. Peace.